Good morning, ex-Winterview, back again with another brief dialogue for his dear friend, Annastacey. A drizzly, miserable Saturday. Maybe I'll get a surf in, maybe not. Today's brief dialogue is on the mystery of happiness. The question of happiness seems to be a popular subject, at least in the self-help books in the bookstore. A lot of people who are into spirituality, often seemingly moving forward, they think, to the promise of happiness or a happier tomorrow. What is it that they're talking about? Will there be a happier tomorrow? Is there a thing called happiness that we can achieve, attain, sustain, and live happily ever after? Wouldn't that be great? The question of happiness, in my humble opinion, is very muddled, misconstrued perhaps frequently. So I thought this brief dialogue would take a scenic tour of the landscape of the promise of happiness and see where it leads. One of the core assumptions for the individual who is seeking spiritual growth or personal growth of some kind, union with God and so forth, one of the core assumptions is that there is indeed a person who, at present, has some state of happiness. Maybe they're unhappy, maybe they're very happy, maybe they're fleetingly happy and they're hoping to somehow increase the time spent in happiness, and so on. A lot of the core assumptions are not often examined very closely. We march off in the general direction of happiness, singing a happy little tune in our heads, looking at the signposts that say happiness 20 kilometers ahead, happiness this way, don't turn back, and so on. But we don't often look at the core assumptions of the individual who is apparently on that journey, which I think are worth having a little peek at, perhaps. When we look in the mirror, or indeed when we just look down, we see this thing we call body. My body, the body, a body, somebody. And indeed when we look around, we see what we believe to be our other bodies, other people. We believe that we're a person. We dream or imagine that we're somehow a person who lives in this body, or who is this body. If that is true, if there is a person in the body, do we know if the body has the capacity to be happy? Do we know if the nervous system is wired that way? Is the brain ready to take on happiness when the conditions are suitable? Do we know that? Do we know that there is a person? Do we even know that what we're looking at is a body? We call it body, but we have to define it ourselves. Are we sure that the definition, or in other words, the edges that we give to the appearance in the world, are in some way representative of the real or the object that we think we're looking at? these questions are, when you start thinking about them, less certain. The journey to happiness suddenly might have forks, diversions, in what seemed to hopefully have been a linear path. Do I know that I live in a body? Do I know that I'm a person who is or lives within the body? I don't, really. I hope I do. My thoughts suggest it. The dream of my life, pardon me, suggests that. But I don't know. I don't know if the dream of being a person, the fantasy of being a person in a body, or as a body, has any reality whatsoever. It's just an appearance, as far as I know. And therefore, do I know if there is the capacity for this concept that I'm a person in a body to be happy? I don't know. But moving on, let's not dwell on these trivial little points. I've got happiness to achieve, damn it. I'm going to get there. So let's just say, yeah, sure, I'm a person, I live in a body, or as a body. Then what is the capacity or the conditions? What are the conditions that that body needs to be happy? Well, we know that the body, at least as far as our conceptualizing goes, has preferences for its own comfort. We know that it doesn't particularly like to be trapped outside on a cold and drizzly day. We know that it likes a good warm meal, if possible. We know that it likes the company of friends and family, likes admiration, likes to be number one, if possible. There's a few funny little quirks that most people agree on that people prefer. But do these things give you happiness? Do they bring happiness? They might bring a pleasurable feeling in the moment. But is that happiness? Is that going to sustain us? We also know that this body gets unhappy very easily. The most common way, or the easiest way to be unhappy, is to long for something you can't have, or long for something you really, really want and don't know how to get, or long for something and just don't know how the hell you're going to get it. That is a great, great way to be unhappy. This is a way that most people, you might say, choose, in quotes, to be unhappy. I'll be happy when I get such and such a thing. So very quickly, the basics of life that we think are good in some way are overlooked in favor of a greater, more grandiose goal for ourselves. Sure, I've got a roof over my head, some food in my belly, and nothing better to do this afternoon than watch TV. Should I be happy? Maybe. You see, what would be perhaps a bit better is if I had a supermodel girlfriend who was massaging me as I watched TV in my free time. Then I'll be happy. Okay, so let's bring in the supermodel girlfriend who is massaging me while I watch TV. Am I happy now? Yeah, probably. Probably am. Let's be honest. Probably very happy right now. But let's stretch that out in time a little bit. Is the happiness going to last? I don't think so. Even though I love the idea of the supermodel girlfriend massaging me whilst I watch TV, or nothing better to do on a Saturday afternoon, you know, it probably has a limit to the pleasure. I'd probably want to do some other things with my supermodel girlfriend that I won't go into in depth, but I think you get the idea. That it seems that no matter what we try or what cleverness we can come up with, it's very difficult to sustain. And so we become seekers of happiness, ever shifting, a little bit restless, a bit uncertain, a bit tentative, a bit what's next kind of thing. and our quest for happiness. And in some ways, that's a bit miserable, that we can't keep lasting happiness. So we discover this thing called spirituality, this promise of spirituality, or having a spiritual goal, which we hope, fingers crossed, in, should we say naivety? Why not? In our naivety, that we will achieve someday, and the reward will be something approaching happiness. Maybe it'll be bliss, or the feeling of unconditional love, and all those great things. Perhaps that's a realistic proposition for the spiritual seeker at the end of the search. But, coming back to our concepts, what can search for spirituality? Is it the person? Is the person going to search for this spiritual goal? This person who exists purely as concept in the body, are they going to achieve something? If it's a concept, how could a concept achieve anything? If it's the body, is the body that we imagine we have, is that going to achieve some spiritual goal? Can a body achieve a spiritual goal? Well, people try. We find that in some quarters we're advised to meditate, that is, relax the body very profoundly. We're advised perhaps that we should eat a certain diet, that this will help. We're advised that we should associate, hang out with, in other words, people of like mind, people who are also on a spiritual search. We believe that if we put the body in a special place, or even a special position, that this will move forward a goal of spirituality, which the promise of is happiness, some kind of happiness. This is the dream. This is the hope. This is the carrot on the stick. But do we know that that's on offer? The whole shebang, in my opinion, in my wisdom, in my perception, you might say, is, how to put this politely, arse backwards. We don't know what the self is. The self, if it is anything, is unknowable, undefinable, indefinable. Indefinable and undefinable. We know of our existence. We know that we exist. Perhaps, if we concede to the definition of existence. Something is here. I'm here, so to speak, in some capacity, to be aware. I'm here to witness or experience life, perhaps. Just being loose and casual with the definitions, not getting too caught up in the whole definitive thing at the moment. What is the essence of this existence? We get clues for this essence in certain circumstances. For example, we know that we love sleep, for example. We love oblivion at night, the falling away of the world, when all the appearances, the activities, etc., the thoughts, the feelings, even our identity, our personness itself, falls away. We love that. It's something delightful in sleep. Isn't that interesting? That when the conceptualizing and the ideas and the thoughts and feelings, etc., all fall away, we love that. It feels great. We know that when we relax, when the thoughts start to calm down, when the conceptualizing eases up a little bit, we feel relaxed, we feel better, feel positive in some way. There's a positive valence, maybe just a slight leaning into positivity. Not necessarily ecstasy, but some positivity. We know that we value life. We know that we will fight tooth and nail against death. We do not walk willingly into death. There is some fight, some wanting to be here, to experience. So we love in some ways the fact that we experience. Without over-philosophizing this, it points to something interesting, something very curious about our very existence itself. It seems that there is, you might say, a positive leaning to our very existence. That is, existence beneath all the concepts and ideas and all that sort of stuff. There is a positivity, a leaning of positivity, you could say, a valence to positivity in just our being in and of itself, which I find fascinating. We have reports from people who meditate a lot that when the conceptualizing mind or the ideas about life, etc., fall away, there's a well-being, a sense of well-being. It feels good when the world falls away. Is this a clue, perhaps, to our essence, you could say, our being as happiness personified? And therefore, are we somehow overlaying it with some misapperception about life? It seems that when we look into the world and conceptualize our lives, our personal lives, our goals, etc., that we somehow get it wrong with happiness. We look for things that are very fleeting and do not sustain us at all in terms of happiness. But when we relax and let go of the conceptualizing and the thoughts and the ideas about what we need, life becomes a little bit more easy and gentle in some ways. We have experiences of when we interrupt and surprise our mind so completely that it enters almost a little mini shock, you could say, that we burst out with laughter. That the mind, when it is fooled in some way, when its concepts are circumvented totally and completely and unexpectedly, there's an immediate flash of joy suddenly, and that's why we laugh. Our baseline isn't negative. As we quieten down thinking, as we relax on a peaceful afternoon, we don't feel progressively more miserable. We feel progressively better, which is a clue, perhaps, that the essence is in some way positive. The person, therefore, the concept of a person, the idea of a body that will reach happiness or will be happy, is probably a fiction, unfortunately. That the things that the body does, or this person apparently does, to be happy are probably good enough. Trying to stay fit, trying to stay social, trying to do things that it enjoys, hobbies, activities, etc., trying not to work too hard, trying to eat good food, staying strong, meditating, blah blah blah, all those things will have a positive effect on the body and will in some ways bring fleeting experiences of this thing called happiness to the person. But overall, it will be a struggle. It will be a never-ending game, you could say. I wouldn't say fruitless necessarily, but if you're thinking that the person will achieve everlasting happiness and bliss, you're looking at something that is probably fruitless. That which is everlasting happiness and bliss and peace and all that good stuff is not an idea that you might have in your head. It is not a concept. The person that you believe to be, conceptually, will not achieve the essence that you are. You could say you're already that. There already is that. It's the foundation of your existence. It is the grounding of your being. And all overlaying, all concepts on top of that will not achieve that which you already are. And that which you already are, unfortunately, doesn't fall within the realm of conceptualizing. It's not in the realm of imagination. And so, ultimately, for the person, it's all a bit transient, a bit temporary, which is perhaps annoying, but perhaps it's good news in a way, to know that whatever you're doing, it's good enough. The seeking that the person thinks they're doing for happiness is probably good enough, and the happiness that you achieve in this world is as good as it gets. It's fleeting, it's transient. Yes it is. Will it last? No. No, it won't. Will any endeavour or effort by the individual or person suddenly bring about everlasting happiness? No. No, it won't. That everlasting happiness, etc., is not a goal that falls in the time-space realm, not something that endeavour will lead to, you could say. It is because it is. So I hope I've opened up a bit of a mystery. I hope I've shut the door on some fantasies that might be driving you a bit crazy. I hope I've crushed a few concepts that were perhaps a bit unhelpful. Unhelpful for who? I have no idea. Anyway, hope you're all well. This has been Winterview with a brief dialogue on happiness.